Welcome everyone. My name is Jaisica Lapsiwala with AVIXA. In a series of interviews, we'll be asking leading events experts their opinion on where the events industry is going. We'll be asking the questions that we're all thinking. What will the future of the live events industry look like? How are we going to survive and thrive? And what will the new normal look like? Today, we're really lucky to have an inside look at what the events industry looks like and what it could look like in the future. We've got Dave Rosenberg, Senior Production Manager from WeWork, joining us for our discussion. Welcome, Dave.
Thanks for having me.
Dave, tell us a little bit more about what your role is and what you do with WeWork.
Sure. WeWork, I lead the event production team for the company. We specialize in broadcasting executive level events globally, wherever needed. We coordinate all the aspects of these events and help to guide our leadership through the process in order to achieve the best possible results.
And what scale of events do you work on?
It's really anything from internal company-wide events where our leadership team are discussing the current state and future state of our company to private speaking engagements, really anything that our leadership team might be involved in.
They're quite a varied role then.
Absolutely. It can be certainly challenging by times.
So in terms of the recent pandemic, how has COVID-19 had an impact on your event plans within your department at WeWork?
Yeah, the pandemic has just turned everything upside down. In the past, our goal as a company was to bring everybody together, and that's what we took a lot of pride in. So all of our events, we focused on how to get as many people in the room as possible safely, but really trying to bring teams together so they can meet new people and interact with each other and just kind of share that experience in person. Since then, we've been working from home and still trying to find ways to utilize video conferencing and live broadcasting to bring these teams together as much as possible virtually. It's certainly been challenging, but it's something that the leadership team has really taken under their wing and made a real effort into how best to engage their teams and how to have their teams engage with each other.
And how have you seen the pandemic really kind of affect your existing relationships and maybe potential partners, such as AV providers and production companies, who are all in an integral part of the live events industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I think after the first couple of weeks passed and everyone kind of realized that this is going to be a longer shutdown than just a week or two, we started to hear from all of our partners, and they were reaching out to us and we were reaching out to them and just kind of checking in and seeing what we could do for each other. And I found it incredibly interesting that some of the companies that we worked with in the past, they might just be staging and lighting companies, but they were reaching out to work with their clients and try and help build virtual events for them. It's something that I think a lot of their clients are new to, or at least new to rolling out an entire virtual event and not having a live audience. So it was really interesting to see everyone was just kind of reaching out to lend a hand. And it might have just been, I can help make your Zoom video conference look a little bit better. I can help you reach a broader audience using your video conferencing platform, or I can help you broadcast. But it was just little things that I thought was really impactful. And you kind of learn the importance of these partnerships go beyond I need stage and lights to, how can I help you in just reaching your market or reaching your employees for that matter.
Yeah, it's really important that in these times of crises that people do find innovative solutions, like you say, and are open to more collaboration. And as an industry, it's very important in the live events industry that we do come together as one.
Absolutely.
What do you think the general sentiment has been in the live events industry recently? What's your kind of sense and your feeling of what's happening in the community?
General sentiment, I think, would be uncertainty, to say the least. No one is quite sure how this will all play out in the future. I believe we're going to get back to normal or a new version of that, as cliche as that may sound now. But we're creatures of habit. Once this all passes and things calm down, I do feel like we might just fall right back into our old habits. And we're going to go to concerts, we're going to go to live events. But what I think is really going to come out of this is engaging the at-home or remote audience more. So previously, live events may have had a live broadcasting aspect, may have posted videos after the fact, but the at-home audience was never the focus. They wanted everyone in the room. They wanted them to be there live with them and engage with them in person. But I think now that we've gone through this process, for lack of better terms, we understand how important the at-home audience is now. And we also understand that these people may want to be there in person, but may feel uncomfortable being around large groups for a certain amount of time and maybe for longer. Who knows? But people are still going to feel that way. They'd love to be there, but they can't. So I think there's going to be a much bigger aspect of how we reach the at-home audience in a way that's much more engaging than just focusing on our in-room audience.
So you think that the world of in-person events and virtual events will exist side by side in parallel?
I think they will, in a, like I said, in a better way than they have in the past. But I think they will. I think we're going to start to cater content that serves both the in-room and at-home audience equally.
So if we take both of these individually, in-person events and virtual events, I'm going to take the virtual events first. How do you think, what do you think makes a good virtual experience? And how are people really finding the virtual experiences that they can tune into and stay engaged with? Because there are so many virtual events out there at the moment. So what makes a good, engaging virtual event?
Knowing your audience. You absolutely have to understand the audience that you're catering this event to. I was on another call with some industry professionals last week. We talked about this very topic, and the focus of this is, for example, internally, we have 1 hour meetings and events. We try and keep them to 60 minutes. We do 45 minutes of content and 15 minutes of Q&A, and the meeting is done. That works pretty well for an in-room audience, but doesn't work so well for the at-home audience. The at-home audience has spouses and children and pets, and the doorbell's ringing, and there's noise outside. There's just thousands of distractions that you have to compete with. So in some cases, that should mean shortening down your content to be more condensed and more concise and more digestible for that person that would normally be in the room with you for an hour, but now probably has the attention span for 10 to 15 minutes. On the other hand, there are audiences that will tune in live to watch Questlove DJ for hours on end. You know, he does live, I think they're on YouTube live streams for hours. Sometimes it's 2 hours, sometimes it's 6 hours. It's however long he feels like DJing for, and people will tune in for the entirety of it just to watch and listen to the music and kind of hang out and relax. So it really depends on the type of event that you're hosting, but it's more imperative now to very much understand your client base.
Excellent. And in terms of in-person events, so fast forward to when the pandemic is hopefully over, and we're back to some sort of normality, what type of experiences do you think are really going to resonate with audiences in the future? Will it be what they expected previously, or do you think this is going to change?
I think it's going to change a little bit. Like I mentioned before, I think we are going to be twisting the in-room experience to also fit the remote viewer as well, to make sure that they feel engaged and a part of it. I work a lot in corporate events, so it's not as creative as maybe other live events are, but in the corporate world, I feel we'll be taking more questions remotely. We need to find better tools that service that part of the industry in a more digestible way, I'll say. Some companies are doing this well, others struggle with it, but I think we'll find more innovation around that to kind of bring those at-home users semi in the room with us to be able to engage and answer questions. I think that's also going to kind of flow into the breakout rooms. You know, we think a lot about general session, but we kind of neglect the breakout rooms. And I think your breakout rooms are now going to have, you know, your internal, your live audience there. But they're also going to have video conferencing that have remote users attending as well and involved in that discussion. So I think it's just going to be, you know, a slightly different way of life, but more of what we were doing, just expanding the audience.
Mm. And with the pandemic, there have been so many platforms and new technologies that have been accelerated or propelled into the ether. Which of the technologies have you found useful thus far? And which ones do you think will stand the test of time? What are we going to continue to need for live events?
Test of time in terms of technology is a tricky question. I think you've seen a lot of innovation already out of Zoom and out of Google Meet, and Hangouts and chat and all of that sort of thing. Zoom has had some security flaws that they've been working on to try and fix. But I will say, for that company to move so quickly to not just catering for the corporate audience, but now catering for everybody, I think they've done a really great job. And some things that I've seen that we have always struggled with video conferencing is showing videos, playing music in the background. There's always been workarounds on the production side that we've been able to do that with, but for the at-home user, it's nearly impossible. Zoom has jumped on that, and they've implemented those changes so you can easily at home show your videos, have background audio if you'd like to do that, or just play audio clips. they've really expanded their capabilities there, which I think is incredibly important for a broadcasting platform. We're now focusing much more on how to bring remote presenters into the live broadcast. Wirecast does this really well with Rendezvous. InExpo, which is now a part of Intrado, they do this really well as well with remote speakers and a producer tool, which you can operate completely remotely from the browser. It allows you to bring in graphics, do lower thirds, change your display layout, all very seamlessly, much like you would with Wirecast, but it's all done in the platform. I think we're going to see a lot more focus on those types of tools and making them better and easier to use, versus what we've seen in the past where some companies have made them available, but they didn't put a lot of time into it, knowing that we'd be using production equipment on the front end and it wasn't really important. Now I think it's very important. And I think the companies that had those in place to begin with are just a step ahead of the game.
So a much slicker, easier to use production workflow.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. And are there any services, as an event producer yourself, are there any services that you would like to see in the future that don't exist at the moment? Are there any known unknowns?
That's a great question. I think one of our biggest challenges is always ingesting into video conferencing platforms. How do we take our production equipment and get it into these systems that are more regularly used than live broadcasting? People want to talk to each other, but they want the quality to be great. That's very difficult to do at the moment. It takes higher end production equipment and things that aren't just very readily available around the house. So I'm really hoping that we can start to bridge that gap and treat these conferencing systems more like production tools.
Brilliant. And some final words from you, Dave. We're talking to the AVIXA community here, the Pro AV community. Are there any final words of inspiration or advice that you can give to our live events community?
Advice, I don't know. We're all just hanging in there. Inspiration, like I mentioned before, things are going to get back to normal. And if nothing else, for us professionals, they're going to become a lot more interesting than they have been in the past. We're going to have to find new solutions, use new tools. And I think that's the most fun part about the job. So I'm ready to get back to it and dive into it and just start learning new processes and coming up with new ideas and sharing those thoughts with the community.
Well, I think that's great advice. Just hang in there, have fun, and learn new things.
Absolutely.
Dave, it's been great talking to you today. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.